Very good evening to all the members, and thank you to International Forum of Promoting Homeopathy for arranging such wonderful webinars for all of us. Am I audible clearly?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So the last presentation was about homeopathic and its acute cases and management. So continuing it further, there were a lot of cases and there was a shortage of time last time. So this time we continue for further cases, which I will share with you. Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is one interesting case which I had treated around 5 years back. It's a case of an acute allergic reaction, and how do we manage it homeopathically? So this is a case of a 80 years old male who had arrived to the hospital with an acute onset erythematous facial and hand edema, and it has progressed within a fraction of few hours. There was generalized pruritus all over the body, and this is, as I would mention, it had started within 2 to 3 hours. So it is a sudden onset allergic reaction involving the face and the arm where there is an edema, and there is generalized pruritus or itching all over the body. So this is a photograph. This photograph has been displayed with a consent of the person that your case would be used for an academic purpose. So again, it is an acute onset phenomena. So now, whenever there is an allergic reaction, and that also the one which develops in a quick succession and at a very rapid pace. So the one thing which we need to keep in mind that as the edema is developing over the face and the hand, the laryngeal edema may also develop. So that means the moral of the story is we have to act in time so that we can stop the progression of the disease and the patient does not go in any kind of respiratory emergency. So it can be a life-threatening emergency, and in such cases, if there is a laryngeal edema, the patient gets completely choked, presents with stridor, and the only thing which we have to do is to do a tracheostomy, as well as you have to administer IV hydrocortisone or steroids. So now the question is, why did this phenomena happen in this particular case? So basically, this patient had developed a left ankle abscess, and he had undergone an incision and drainage around 4 days back. And the regular dressings were going on. So the dressing material which was used was the betadine solution, Savlon solution, and hydrogen peroxide. So these were the solutions which were used for doing the dressing, and because of which he landed up with hypersensitive reaction or allergic reaction to these substances and solutions like betadine, Savlon, and hydrogen peroxide, and landed up with an entity which is known as angioneurotic edema with an acute disseminating eczema. So now the scenario is an abscess. Patient has been drained with an abscess. There has been a dressing going on, and suddenly, as soon as he is out of one particular disease, he lands up with an acute emergency. So then, immediately considering this as an allergic phenomena, we had to clinically be very sure. So we had sent an serum IgE level. IgE levels are usually high in cases of allergic reactions. So it was 2189, which is very high. The normal range is around 100. And the eosinophilia, when you do a CBC, the eosinophilia, it was 10%. Normally it should be around 1 to 6%. When you get an eosinophilia in a CBC, we also look for absolute eosinophilic count, which is 750 per cubic millimeter. The normal range is around 30 to 350. So imagine all this parameter is quite conclusive that it's a allergic reaction which we had clinically diagnosed, confirmed with the help of investigation. So this is how the march of event has happened. Now the question is, what a conventional line of treatment the modern medicine has to offer, and what an homeopathic doctor can offer in such situation. Since it's an allergic reaction, usually modern medicine doctors would prefer to give anti-allergic medicines, which is followed by steroids. And as I mentioned, that if the patient develops laryngeal edema, then the only option left is doing a tracheostomy. But considering his infective illness and his wound, which is recently there was an incision and drainage of the abscess, usually they avoid giving steroids in cases where there is surgical wounds, because it may turn into a non-healing ulcers. Because what happens is, when we are prescribing steroid, the usual line of action of this steroid is to block the inflammatory process. So, as far as possible, modern medicine doctors would avoid giving steroids. But if it's a life-threatening phenomena, they have no option then to give steroids. So now this was all about modern medicine doctors. What as we a homeopathic doctor offer. So let us understand the homeopathic process. If we understand the few important glimpses of this case, the trio of presentation is itching, edema, and there is a sudden onset allergic phenomena. And the other symptom which we got, because it is important for us to ascertain the modalities. So what we got, the patient said that I am better by cold bathing or applying something cold or applying something icy things on the body, and I feel better after that. So this was a presentation. Before we start intervening with homeopathy, we have to understand the classification of the disease. Why I say so is, and my personal belief in this is, that until unless we don't know the classification of the disease, a line of management is not clear. So the classification of disease in this particular case is acute exacerbation of a chronic dynamic disease with few characteristic expressions, or predominantly a one-sided expression, as mentioned in the aphorism from 172 to 184. So what I understand, it's an allergic phenomena which has just exacerbated because there was a precipitating factor, and it is just an acute exacerbation of a chronic underlying disease. But here the expressions are quite few and scanty, and predominantly it's an one-sided expression. So, as I already mentioned, the classification of disease is mandatory because it gives us an idea how do we manage this particular case. So the differential remedy, when we take these three symptoms into account, is Apis mellifica, because it's an edema, allergic phenomena, better by cold, is Apis mellifica. Second is sulfur, and third is Fagopyrum. These three remedies were actually, derived after we went through a repertorization, especially referring a synthesis repertory, and we found that these three remedies come very frequently in these symptoms because, as I've already mentioned, that itching, which is followed by burning and better by cold. The only difference in these three remedies is Apis mellifica has got itching, burning, and edema, which is better by cold, whereas sulfur has got itching, burning, edema, better by cold, but patient is aggravated by bathing. Sulfur patient usually avoids bathing, but they may be better by cold, whereas Fagopyrum has an itching, may have an edema, but there is no burning, but they are better by cold bathing as well as cold application in general. So these three remedies coming up, these three remedies have these few characteristic differences. First important difference is the presence of burning in Apis is very commonly seen, and patient is better by cold. In sulfur, burning better by cold is seen, but bathing aggravation is seen in sulfur. As soon as the person bathes, the itching may get aggravated. This is what has been mentioned in the skin chapter also. And phagopyrum, there is itching, there is edema, but there is no burning mentioned in the literature, but they are better by cold. So the reference as taken was from synthesis repertory I mentioned, and in that particular rubric, skin chapter, skin itching, cold water amelioration, phagopyrum is a remedy which is the 3-mark remedy. So phagopyrum was a remedy which was coming up very closely when we were trying to prescribe this remedy. What important thing which we found about phagopyrum from the doctrine references, phagopyrum is nothing but it's a buckwheat. It's a crop, buckwheat crop, which solely depends upon honeybees. That is, honeybees is nothing but it is Apis mellifica for its pollination. So wherever there is a buckwheat crop, and if there is honeybee webs around or honeycombs are there, the pollination is very fast, very easy, and that ultimately results into high crop yield. That means the crop production is very high. So considering this, that means the Apis mellifica and phagopyrum has some form of complementary relation, and this was an interesting thing which we got from the references, and I felt that we should share it with you. So we started with phagopyrum in this particular case, and we started with 1 m potency, but in second dilution, that means the second dilution medicine was used. How do we prepare second dilution is usually what we do is we take a around 1/4 glass of water and we put around 8 to 10 pills, stir it, and from this particular glass we take around 5 tablespoons into another empty glass, which is further filled with water up to a half level of the glass, and that is the second solution. And from that second solution we gave 2 tablespoons every 1 hourly. So this was a photograph of the individual right at the start of the treatment. So we started with phagopyrum 1 m. So considering why we used 1 m, we have to understand this concept of susceptibility as well as high sensitivity in this particular individual. When we say sensitivity, when we say high sensitivity, it means the person had an immense reactivity to an allergen, and that had reflected immensely at the level of the skin. And second thing what we have to understand is the susceptibility of an individual is an heightened sense of susceptibility and fulminant susceptibility, because the disease phenomena has fast and rapid progression which may lead into complication. So if you understand the concept of susceptibility and sensitivity in each and every case, it will obviously help us to understand what should be the potency selection. Secondly, what will be our next contingency plan. Third, how do we repeat the particular remedy or the particular potency. So here, if you understand, it's a heightened sense of susceptibility as well as with high sensitivity, and the rapid progression of the disease. So in order to combat this, we had to select 1 m potency. So here, in such cases, which an emergency case, we have to always keep a check on such patient, and there has to be a follow-up on hourly basis. So after 6 hours of starting the treatment, patient said that I am better, my itching is better, my edema is little less. Okay, we believe the patient, we felt that there is mild change in the edema and there is no respiratory distress. all the clinical parameters, including the temperature, pulse, BP, and saturation, all was normal. After 10 hours, itching is much better. Patient is saying itching has reduced and edema is reduced. So here itching becomes a very important parameter when we are addressing any allergic phenomena, because itching is something which means there is a release of histamine, and whenever there is a release of histamine, there is an intense desire to scratch, and more you scratch, more is the histamine release, and more histamine release means more inflammation and more will be the edema. So moment if there is any change in the itching, it's an indication that your remedy has registered and there is some changes which is going to happen soon, because the inflammatory cascade or the inflammatory process will soon come to a hold. So here the itching was much better and edema was little better, but there is no respiratory distress, which is a worrisome thing which we have to keep a check on. Now, after 24 hours, patient is having a smile on his face. We took his photograph. The edema is less. You can see edema is reduced. Redness and erythema is reduced. Itching is much better. We continued the medicine because the inflammatory process needs to put to a complete hold, or it should be completely extinguished. So we have to continue the repetition. And after 48 hours, if you can see, patient was absolutely fine, sitting with a backdrop, and you can see his hands also. So after 48 hours, his skin was absolutely as normal as he was, and patient was better with this strategy of choosing a remedy and giving in higher potency second dilution every 1 hourly. After the 48 hours, when patient had settled down, we discharged the patient and we discharged him on a constitutional remedy, which was his constitutional remedy was Nux vomica. We gave a single dose, and thereafter patient didn't land up with any form of allergic phenomena. So now, as we understand the entire journey, the first presentation was that he had an abscess, he was drained by a surgeon, he was told to do a regular dressing, landing up with an allergic phenomena, and then we confirm it by clinical diagnosis. Then we try to intervene by giving homeopathic medicines, and homeopathic medicines, and thereafter we see the changes. So here the learning or the take home message for me when I was treating this case was, and I'm sharing with all my fellow beings, that the concept of diagnosis is mandatory, because in case if the remedy fails, what next has to be done, because patient is our responsibility. We can't at the last moment say that okay, you take a transfer to another doctor. So we have to be very careful, and we should know what should be a future plan of action, where we can go, where the things can go right, and where what has to be done if the things are not correct or they are not going as per our strategy. Then concept of pathogenesis. We have to understand what is the pathogenesis, which we learned from this case. Third important thing which I always feel is whenever I take up the case, understanding what is the classification of the disease, what is the disease which we are trying to handle. Then understanding the state of susceptibility is important. Fourth, the other thing is concept of one-sided disease. Concept of one-sided disease is important, and we should know how do we treat such cases where the diseases are coming up with only few expressions or only few presentation, and there should be an understanding how do we use the rare remedies and specific remedies in cases where there is active pathology. Then other important unique thing which we learned from this case is understanding the doctrine and understanding how the doctrine can help us to understand the disease phenomena and understand the complementary remedy relationship. And the next is understanding how do we use the eliminating rubrics and eliminating symptom. Like as we got the itching, which is better by cold application or cold water amelioration. The only hallmark remedy was Fegopyram and while referring, we came to know that our patient has itching, but there is no burning. There is erythema, but there is no burning, which is a hallmark of other two remedies, that is apis and sulfur. So this was one of the case which I thought of a different dimension, which I should share with you, because whenever there is an allergic reaction in the current state, the patients become very, very anxious, especially if the person is 80 years old and already has recovered from one surgery. He was trying to recover. Last four days back, he had a surgery. And in that situation, the normal tendency is the patient will go and go for an immediate step. And in such situation, if we are able to help them homeopathically, and we should be thankful to patient who believes that homeopathic doctor can make some difference. This patient was admitted under my care, and I could stand up to his expectation. So that was a very important thing which I thought I should share with all the group members. Now I'll share another case. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yeah. So last session I had discussed a case with a respiratory complaints, and the other case was with a cardiological disease. This was something with a skin allergic reaction, and right now I'll share a case with a gynecological problem. So again, this case is a very sensitive case because it is to deal with the genital tract, and we had confirmed and taken the consent of the patient that we are treating you with the genital infection, and we will take the photograph, and these photographs are completely confidential, and we are going to use it for the educational and the academic purpose. So I'm just sharing it with the due respect to the patient and patient's dignity. So it's a confidential thing, but I'm sharing it for the better learning.
Okay.
So it's a case of a gynecological disease. 21 years female. She had a vulval and a vaginal itching with severe burning and pains, severe burning pains, and this had started since last 10 days. And she was so much distressed that she could not even touch that particular area because of the inflammatory changes and lot of burning and lot of edema around and itching. So the sensitivity to touch was so much that she cannot even cannot even bear the touch of the clothes, and it was very painful, and she could not even walk with the legs together. She had to keep her legs apart. So as I've already mentioned, that the consent was obtained from the patient for the educational purpose and clinical use. So now if we see this particular photograph, shows that the itching and inflammation of that particular area was so much that patient had developed vulval edema. You can see the vulva, the left side vulva has become so much edematous, and if you can see in between, there is a leukorrhea like discharge which is coming out from the vaginal area. So leukorrhea which was discharging, it was whitish and yellowish and very offensive, which we could which we could feel during the local examination. There was a labial edema. So this was the photograph. If we can appreciate, predominantly left-sided labial edema was quite predominant. And when we did a little bit invasive examination by separating the two folds of the labia, what we found, there was an ulceration which was there on the left side labial inner surface. Left-sided labial inner side had an ulceration. So now we are trying to connect. There was an external itching. Along with that, there was an internal leucorial discharge, and there was an ulceration on the left side. So now here we came across an interesting reference which suggests that according to aphorism number 83, individualization or individualizing examination of a case of disease demands of the physician nothing but freedom from prejudice and sound senses and attention in observation. Means observation should be sharp. If we don't do a clinical examination, maybe we'll miss all this finding like ulceration and the side predominance that left-sided labia had more edema. So we need an observation. For observation, we have to be very neutral and we have to be really open-minded and go and examine whether we do a case-taking examination or we do a clinical examination. And fidelity in tracing the picture of the disease. That means if we do all these things and we follow the basic steps, we often can trace the picture of the disease accurately. So here, role of observation in case taking. So case taking is not only while we are talking to the patient, but case taking is also the clinical examination when we examine a person. Maybe you look into the eyes of the person, or you look into just look for the or palpate for the pulse, auscultate. So these all things combine to strengthen our case taking skill. So this is one case which made me realize that okay, examining each and every patient is very very important, because if we don't examine, we may miss the totality. So vaginal area which was painful, slightest change of position was giving rise to problem to the patient, and slightest touch, even the touch of the clothes was unbearable. And as I've already mentioned, she was walking with the legs apart. That was what we had seen. She had even pain while micturition. So because of so much of inflammatory process around the genital area, as we all know, in a woman, genital area and the urethral area lies very close to each other. So there is a chance that the surrounding area will be so much inflamed that even when the person is micturating, the patient may experience pain. And there was dribbling of urine with painful urging to pass urine. And this was one aspect which we got from the patient and during the clinical examination and what the patient symptoms came up. There was certain thing which came to us at the level of mind, which was given by patient's relative when we were doing the examination. Because the one question which I asked the patient and patient's mother, that you are suffering since 10 days. Why did you not come to the hospital, or why did you not come to me a little earlier? The answer to her to this question was, mother said that she is absolutely a very obstinate person, and she is difficult to command. Means you cannot tell her to do certain things, and she does on her own, and she takes her own decision. Just now, because she was not able to walk, I had to ask her, request her, and that's how she came to us. She is quite irritable and she's quite dominating, and plus at the same time, she being a woman, 21 years age, 21 years of age, she is into a friend circle which has brought her into an addiction. She is prone to smoking and taking certain tobacco products, and that is how we got the history from the mother. When just after asking her one question, why did you spend 10 days staying home and not taking any treatment, that was what we had asked, and all this thing unfolded. So on further inquiry, we found that she is a chili patient. Then we sent certain investigation. When we sent the investigation, her HB was 14, her WBC count was 9,400, her platelet was around 2 lakhs. Just because she had such fulminant infection and she had an addiction history, we thought we should also get her her main profile to rule out any kind of HIV or AIDS kind of a thing. So that was negative. Urine routine, which showed lot of proteins and plenty of pus cells. The entire urine was nothing but it was just a pus filled with pus. And then considering this, if she has a genital infection and there is plenty of pus cells or the entire urine is just like a pus, then we should rule out whether there is an infection in the pelvic organs, especially when we talk about the uterus, because she may land up with metritis, as well as we should rule out whether the patient has any kind of ascending infection to the kidney, where they may develop pyelonephritis. If this infection goes little up, then the person may develop pyelonephritis, that is a suppurative infection or the inflammation of the kidneys, especially the kidney parenchyma. So here, the clinically we were with vulvovaginitis as the diagnosis, and I have mentioned that it was mandatory for us to rule out HIV, so we did that test and that was negative. Here the diagnosis is severe vulvovaginitis due to candidiasis. Another important thing which we do here in this particular case is to rule out diabetes. So we had done as soon as a patient gets admitted under the hospital, what we do at least basic 3 readings on a glucometer to see whether patient is having any diabetic or patient has got any high sugar levels. So she was non-diabetic, and that's why the diagnosis here for us to clinically confirm is severe vulvovaginitis due to candidiasis. Now, understanding the state of susceptibility is high because the presentation is although there is infection, but there is the superficial involvement involving the skin and the mucous membranes. And secondly, whatever the symptoms are coming up, they are characteristics. Sensitivity is very high. Patient is saying that I cannot even allow the touch of the clothes, cannot walk with the legs together. And other important thing, her mental symptoms also suggest she's highly reactive and she has a characteristic mental expressions also. And she has a pathology which is a reversible zone pathology and patient can get cured. So she is into a completely a curable zone, good immune system because there is no other signs of any kind of low immunity or immunocompromised status. Vitality of the patient is good, young patient, and it's an acute expression. And this all reasons are good enough to label us that the patient is a state of high susceptibility. Now, again, for me, classification of the disease is mandatory. It's an acute individualistic disease, which is a dynamic form with fully developed symptom. So here the symptomatology is fully developed. There is no localization at one particular sector and the other symptoms are not coming up. We have got physical general, we got mental symptoms also, we got her local symptoms also, and we got good modalities also. So if we understand at the level of the physical level, and second is the mind. Physical level, there is a lot of acridity, lot of offensivity of the discharge. Discharges are thick and there is ulceration which we had seen. Whereas at the level of mind, what we can see is the patient is very irritable, very heedless. Heedless means the person is in his or own space and she takes her own action. She doesn't bother what others will feel about it or whether my actions can have any consequence on others. And she's difficult to be commanded. Means you cannot instruct her or you cannot tell her that do this or do that. She is difficult to be commanded. So understanding these things, I thought she falls into a tuberculosyphilitic zone understanding her acridity, a lot of ulceration, offensivity of the discharge, and then the mind is quite reactive, irritable, and very obstinate, and she is a very headstrong lady. So now we have come to a process where we know the diagnosis. We know that she is having a lot of infection in the urine. Thirdly, we know that she is in a state of susceptibility, high state of susceptibility, and we know this may she may be in a tuberculosyphilitic miasmatic zone. What is important is when we are handling this case, as I've already mentioned, that we should know that what can go wrong, what can be the complication. So, first important thing is if the infection ascends upward, there can be involvement of the uterus and other pelvic structure, and that may be labeled as pelvic inflammatory disease. So, patient may go into a pelvic inflammatory disease if we don't treat it properly. If a person goes into a pelvic inflammatory disease, a lady who is 21 years old, she may land up with involvement of fallopian tube, and there can be a fibrotic process because of the recurrent inflammation. So that means we have to treat the infection and the inflammation in such a way that she doesn't develop any recurrence. And if there is a fibrosis and blockage of this fallopian tube, the patient can go in, land up into infertility. And plus, there can be a uterine infection also, as I've said, metritis. Another thing which I mentioned is the urine is so much of pus, then there can be a possibility of ascending infection also. So again, the question is, with so much of infection and so much of trouble, whether we should go with modern medicine or allopathic line of treatment or homeopathy. Here, with modern medicine, what best can be offered is they give a regular vaginal wash with an antiseptic solution. Local applications can be given. They may give a pessaries and local application for the skin irritation and all to settle down. Many a time they may give seeds bath in order to take care the local infection as well as the other surrounding areas. Then oral medications can be given, especially antibiotics or antihistaminic can be given. Or if the infection is too much, they may give an IV antibiotics and all. So now with homeopathy, what we can do is the only weapon which we have is our case taking skills and identifying the right symptom. Because until and unless we don't pick up the right symptoms, we cannot reach the right simillimum. And we have to understand these parameters of acute totality, susceptibility, and understanding the miasmatic approach. So, as usual, we being a homeopathic physician and we being a homeopathic team, we would always try our best to give homeopathic result. So, we started understanding the symptoms. The first important quadrant which we understood is the leukorrhea, which was acrid, offensive, excoriating. There was a urethral pain, which was worse after micturition. Patient was worse by touch, and patient was better by warmth. And she said that she gets aggravated at night. Then the mind symptoms, as I mentioned, that this history was given by a mother. She's quite obstinate, or headstrong or obstinate, very irritable, difficult to be commanded or instructed or suggested, and she's heedless. Means she does what she wants. She doesn't have any head or tail of her actions. And what we got it in clinical examination is left-sided labial edema, and there is an ulceration on the left side of the labia. So here again an aphorism, and all the members are quite experienced, but just as a part of academics, I try to correlate with aphorism number 18. The totality of symptom is the only indication, the only guide to the selection of a remedy. So if there are no symptoms, there is less chances that we can intervene with homeopathy and give a good simillimum. Yeah, there are options of giving some pathological or tissue remedies always, but as far as totality of the symptoms is considered, it is the supreme most thing. So understanding that she had a lot of pathological factor, pathological particulars, she had good modalities of worse touch and better by warm. and she had a physical particular sensation, and then final differentiation of mental disposition. What we thought is this is a case which can be sorted off with Boger's approach. So now here, if we consider the repertorization, here female genital leukorrhea acrid and excoriating, leukorrhea offensive. We are considering the pathological symptoms now: ulcers in the vagina, then a characteristic particular sensation, female genitalia, pain which is burning type because of the leukorrhea, then a pathological particular of swollen labia. Labia is swollen, it's a pathological symptom. Leukorrhea while standing, this was another symptom which we took, and left-sided, as all the symptoms on clinical examination was left-sided. Then heedless, irritability at trifles, and obstinate. So when we took these symptoms, the remedies which were coming up was creosote, nitric acid, sepia, merc, sulfur, lachesis, and arsenic, and phosphorus. So these were the first 7-8 remedies which were coming up. So we picked up certain remedies for differentiation, out of which creosote, nitric acid, merc-sol, and sepia were the remedies which we took up. So the mucous membrane of the genitals and the female genitalia, the sphere of action is there in creosote, whereas nitric acid has got affection for the mucocutaneous junction and the glands. Merc-sol is basically more predominantly lymphatic glands, and there are other tissues of the body which gets involved. And sepia, when we considered, it is predominantly for the pelvic organs and the female genitals. Then we consider the discharge, as we had seen that there was a pathological discharge. We consider the discharge for differentiation. In creosote, the discharges are profuse, acrid, hot, foul, and offensive. Whereas in nitric acid, there is brownish color discharges because the blood stain is very important. Acridity is there in nitric acid also, and offensivity is not as much as which is seen in creosote and which is seen in merc-sol. In merc-sol, the secretions or discharges are plenty and profuse, and they are free. They are thin, slimy, with acridity and thick greenish discharge. Whereas in sepia, it is milky discharges and yellowish greenish discharges which are in lumps. Another important thing is we have to now understand the female genital system, which is there as a seat of disease in this particular patient. Here the creosote had leukorrhea, which was gushing, offensive, corrosive, causing itching with accompanying complaints. Whereas nitric acid has got bloody, watery leukorrhea, or predominantly more than leukorrhea, they have got frank hemorrhages, which is after overexertion. Menorrhagias are very common in nitric acid. Then we go next on merc-sol. Here there is rawness of the genitals. Leukorrhea is thick, white, and which is very profuse, and there is a relief when the person is urinating. And along with these symptoms, the patient may also have prolapse of uterus. Now next we go to sepia. Sepia labia is swollen, abscess formation. There is metritis, tendency to abortion. And important thing is there is a dragging sensation, which is a very hallmark of sepia. Next we go on is modalities, which is important. Worse by touch and better by warmth, especially the itching of the vulva, and worse during micturition. These three modalities is seen in the patient as well as creosote. Whereas in nitric acid, patient is better by pressure. Here, patient is even sensitive to touch. So patient is moving with the legs apart, and here nitric acid, slightest of causes can aggravate the problem. Another important thing is, and another important thing is, patient is better by rest, worse by heat, worse by lying on right side. Merxol, by patient is better by rest. Any form of warmth aggravates and worse by lying on right side. In CPR, patient is better by crossing the limb, which is not in this patient. Patient is worse by bringing the legs together. So if we now go on the mental dispositions or the mental expressions of the patient, if you see creosote, they are willful individuals, cross, obstinate, dissatisfied with everything in creosote, whereas nitric acid is anxious about disease, easily frightened, and despondency is there in nitric acid, whereas Merxol is violent anger and suspicion, and in CPR there is aversion to family with indifference and constant worries, which is there in CPR. So now we have differentiated these four drugs, and out of which more close remedy is creosote and Merck, but considering better by warmth, creosote comes better. So we started with creosote 200 every 1 hourly in this particular case. Okay, we started with creosote 200, 3 pills every 1 hourly. When we were referring the source book, there was few important glimpses which we found in creosote is in Borix Materia Medica, excoriating, burning, offensive discharges, ulceration, and burning pains. This was given in the first paragraph of creosote. And if you consider the mind section of the Boric, it is clearly mentioned that patient is irritable. Borix Materia Medica in urinary and female, violent itching of vulva and vagina, worse from micturition. There is corrosion and pruritus of the female genitals, burning and swelling of the labia, itching between the labia and thighs, and leucorrhea, which is yellow, acrid, and offensive odor. This is there in creosote. Then better by warmth. Better by warmth is mentioned in the modality section of Boric Materia Medica. So I'm just saying that if you go in detail, we get references from various books, and that is helpful for strengthening our prescription. Bogus synoptic, because we are dealing with all pathological symptom, and once we talk about pathology, it is important to refer a very right book, which is a bogus synoptic key. Here, if you see the region or the tissue or the area which is involved, here it is mentioned that female genitals. Then we go on the right hand side, modality section, better by warmth. Better by warmth is mentioned, and then they are giving a synopsis of this drug in few lines. In a synoptic key, you get a glimpses of that drug and the key points of the drug, that profuseness and foulness and hot acrid discharges. You see profuse, foul, hot and acrid discharges, which is burning like fire, and that inflames the part or reddens the part, ulceration and dissatisfied. This is the hallmark of creosote from bogus synoptic key. If we consider the particular section, physical particular section of the bogus synoptic key, it is mentioned that patient has ulceration in the uterus, leucorrhea with itching is mentioned, and gushing leucorrhea in in bogus as well as boric both. And very important thing, we were trying to search creosote side affinity. We got it from Clark's Materia Medica, which mentions that it is predominantly left-sided. Predominantly left-sided. And it has mentioned that it has got foulness, and foulness is of a type where even the breath is foul. So generally, when we talk about foulness, we think of mercury group more, but it has cadaveric putridity. Foulness is there equally in creosote, as mentioned in Clark's Materia Medica. Now you understand the modality. When I was reading the modality section of Clark's Materia Medica, worse standing, worse touch, and better by warmth, and these three symptoms are there in our patient. Both worse touch, better by warmth, and worse standing. Everything is there in a patient. And so I was more sure of creosote. And when I was reading the doctrine, then we go into a detail how the creosote is prepared, and let us understand the doctrine also. So it is mentioned that creosote is prepared after distillation of the wood tar, and it leads to formation of pyroligenox, pyroligenoous acid, which has got acridity, and that's how we can correlate that this creosote as a remedy has got so many discharges or so many things which has got acridity at all the spheres of the body, or in all the sectors of the body, all the organs, all the discharges are acrid in nature, and this particular thing can be correlated with the doctrine which is given in creosote. So once we start the remedy, we have to be sure about what are the follow-up criteria which we should look forward. So we started with creosote 200 every hour, 1 hourly. After 24 hours, what we found is this was the change. There is some difference in the discharge. Edema is still the same. Edema is still the same or mildly ameliorated as per patient, but clinically it doesn't look to be a very great difference. But discharges had decreased and itching had decreased. As I had mentioned earlier case also, itching is a sign that there is an inflammatory cascade going on, and more the itching, more is the inflammatory process going to continue. And the pain had decreased. The pain which was there during micturition and burning had decreased, and patient's dysuria, as mentioned, is also reduced. So there was some registration of this medicine. If you see the ulceration redness had reduced and the healing process had started. After 48 hours of creosote, we find the discharge was much better. Swelling is also reduced, but it is not progressively coming down. Pain had reduced, itching had reduced. Patient had that gait where patient was walking with the legs apart had also not changed much, but certain signs had improved, and the sensitivity to touch had still persisted. So considering this, we thought we should give in 1M potency. Considering this, we thought that the changes have started, but it is not as great as it should be. So we made it creosote 1M every 2 hourly, 1M potency. Now you see, after starting 1M, within 24 hours, the edema started shrinking. It has started reducing, no discharge at all, itching is much better, and the gait of the person also started improving. Now you see the edema after almost 4 days. On the fourth day of follow-up, the edema had gone so much down. No discharge, no swelling, no itching. Gait had improved. Gait means the way she was walking. Now she could walk with her legs together. So I would like to share a video in this. Let me find the video. If I get it, I will just share the video with you. Can this video be seen? Hello?
No, no.
No, sir.
Can this be seen?
No, no.
No, sir. Only the picture, not the video. Only we can see your screen.
It's not opened. Okay, oh.
Can this be seen?
No,
No,
no.
sir. Only the screen, and can hear some sound.
So you can see that lady is
Sir.
with a wide leg. That we could see.
Sir, for sharing the video, so you have to cancel the screen share again, and while screen sharing again, instead of giving your whole screen, you will appear. You can see a VLC player. Share that tab only, then it will work.
Okay, okay.
And don't forget to tick mark the use sound also. There will be
Okay.
something, and just screen share your screen. Then I will guide you. While clicking on the screen share option, you can see your VLC player also, right?
Yeah.
Click that, and you please make sure that you tick mark the share sound to.
Share computer sound and optimize screen sharing for video clip.
Yes, don't do the optimizing video thing. Do the other thing and share.
Okay. You could see the video.
Yes, 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 sir.
Sir, well and clear.
Okay. So this was before treatment, and now I'll show you a after treatment video.
Okay.
That after treatment video is not opening up.
Sir, play that video also in using VLC player.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I've got
Open
a shortcut for that video.
That's the shortcut for the video. You should have to find the
Why,
option.
yeah. You're right, sir. So I think as soon as I find my original video, I'll play with you.
Yes,
But
yes.
this was the condition when the patient had come to us. She was walking in that particular fashion. So this was the condition with which the patient had come, and we had
And if you want to find the original one, just hover it over the shortcut. Then it will show the original path.
okay. I'll do that. So
Okay.
right now I'll share my presentation first.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
So the learning from this case which we got was that consent is necessary before we document any. For documentation, we need a consent. Objective symptoms, and as I had mentioned, that role of observation was very important. Then understanding, the practical utility of organ on of medicine is only possible with the help of cases, and we have to understand and go back to our philosophy book to document what we are actually seeing in practice. Bogus concept, and bogus materia medica gives us the genesis or the synopsis of that particular drug, formulation of the totality, even if there are few symptoms, or even if there are few symptoms at the body and there are few characteristic expression, how do you merge it and form the totality, and differentiation of remedies, minute differentiation, and basically the referencing, which is very important, and the concept of posology. Till the time I was with 200, her other symptoms are better, but pathological symptom of edema did not improve so much drastically. But as soon as I made it 1M, there was an improvement, and startling improvement in the edema, the local edema and all. So this particular case teaches us that if you are able to judge the potency posology, you can make a great amount of improvement in a patient in a short span of time. So this is all what I learned from this particular case. So I'll try to share that video, and there are further more cases. If group is interested, we can continue the session depending on the availability.
Doctor, we have to have a question hour session after that. So I think we shall arrange another session for you, sir. Very interesting one. But
Okay, sir.